embrace vulnerability, but allow for that vulnerability too. I mean, like if you got like somebody you genuinely consider your brother, like then support them when they're going through something. But hopefully you've created that kind of connection in that bond where your brother can feel like he could open up and be vulnerable and be like, yo, like I'm going through this situation and I'm not looking for you to just ride out with me. I just need somebody to talk to about this and just to vent this out and then supporting one another through that. Like not judging him because, calling him weak or whatever, or saying we all need each other. We all need somebody to lean on. And if that brother doesn't have anybody but you, why are you going to be the one to push him away? So, um, yeah, the opportunity and the space and the allowance of vulnerability, I think, is just something that would really help us grow together, as Black men.
On this episode, I got to sit down with musician, hip hop artist, educator, and activist Steve Tyson, also known as Ellect. We sat down to discuss Steve's understanding of Black culture, how he educates through his music and art, his journey with JusListen Entertainment, and what it means to take ownership in self. We sat down and unpacked the impact of hip hop, the role parents and grandparents play in helping us to discover and support our purpose, and the positive impact that vulnerability can have in Black male relationships. Enjoy. Welcome, brothers. Welcome to the Middle Brother Podcast. We got another good brother for you today. For episode 3, we have a musician, hip hop artist, educator, and activist. Brother, if you can introduce yourself, please do.
How y'all doing? My name is Steve Tyson. As my good brother Octavius said, I am a musician, a hip hop artist, educator, and activist. I've been living in Philly for the last 11 years, and I'm really glad to be on this podcast with you, my
I appreciate you for joining, brother.
man.
So we're just gonna kick it off, brother. First question I got for you is, what is one thing you love about being a Black man?
Oh man. I guess one thing that I love is just the connection that I have to everything Black throughout history, including the first humans, really.
Yeah.
So, music, the fashion, the style, the humor, our attitude, our storytelling, our spirituality, our values, our
Mm,
principles, all of that stuff are probably the things that I love most about being a Black man.
okay. I like that you said style, because I'm loving the shirt that you got on right now. If you
Thank
can,
you.
if you can tell a little bit about it, because I see brothers lifting up another brother. If
Oh,
you could
where, yeah.
explain
So
that shirt real quick.
yeah, it's a piece by an artist, a graffiti artist and visual artist named Keith Haring. And so,
Okay.
yeah, it's one of the works that were done in his first show. And yeah, you just see folks uplifting another man or another figure, I should say.
Okay.
So, yeah, it just felt pretty apropos to this conversation.
I like that. I might have to. Where you get it from? Because I'm gonna have to get one.
Well, yeah, I'll let you know. I'll let you know. Gotta keep some things on the
I
low.
feel you,
But
brother.
yeah.
I feel you. I feel you. So I do appreciate you for saying style and also just culture in general,
Hmm.
because that's one thing that I see as far as Black men and Black people, is that style is just created from other spaces to sit there and say, well, if it's hot right now, who's a part of it?
Hmm.
So when you
Hmm.
look at any kind of space that you see with Black men, Black people, we bring a certain swag, we bring a certain style to whatever we do. And that's why I appreciate you for being on, because you have a specific style on how you educate, how you create music, how you create an impactful space for people. So that's the main reason why um, you're on here. But also the other reason is because you're my brother, and I appreciate you and I love you,
Word. Thanks, man. I
man.
love you too, bro.
So I know I know you're a hip hop artist, a musician. So I know you probably heard of Big Ticket, right?
Yeah, of course.
So you've heard of In the Basement with Big Ticket, where all these
Yeah,
rappers
Rap
come
City.
in, Rap
That's what I
City.
grew up on, man. That was high school, early years of college. Yeah, Big Tigger was the man.
So that's what we're gonna do right now. Not having you rap. It's called it's called In the Den. And In the Den, like I said with other brothers that I've had on, is for discovery, exploration, and navigation.
hmm
So the first question I have for you is: at what moment did you discover you were a black man?
Hmm. To be honest, I don't know if it ever felt like a discovery.
Mm-hmm.
Just because as early as I can remember, I've always been taught about my heritage and, who I come from as a black man in America with Afro, Latino, and Caribbean heritage too. Like all of
Mm-hmm.
that has been consistent in my understanding of self and of my family. So I don't know if it ever felt like a discovery moment where I was thinking one thing and then I had this epiphany and it was something else.
Mm-hmm.
If anything, the things that I discovered was how people reacted to my identity as a black man and
Mm-hmm.
my understanding of self and how that resonated with other people or made other people fearful of me for
Yeah.
whatever reason. Those are some discoveries that I definitely noticed along my journey for sure.
If you could elaborate on that, as far as how people reacted to you, like what did you discover in those moments, as far as
Hmm.
reactions, and how did that, turn you into the person that you are today?
That's a great question. I think that it's shifted to some extent depending upon, my space and place in life.
Mm-hmm.
So as a kid, I grew up in Johnstown, Pennsylvania, which was a really isolated and really racist kind of town,
Mm-hmm.
in this neighborhood in this section of Pennsylvania, and there wasn't many kids that looked like me in my school or my school district. The most black people I saw was in the church, if it wasn't
Mm-hmm.
for folks in my family, and so whenever I was at school or different, social functions and stuff like that, I'd want to play a certain song or I'd want to, do something that, was somewhat representative of my culture. And
Mm-hmm.
it would be teachers or other parents or whoever or other adult figures being like, no, you can't do that. That's bad or that's wrong and that kind of stuff. And, as I got older in high school and in college, I felt like I had the opportunity to kind of take more of more ownership over
Mm-hmm.
myself and who I am and how I see myself. But then as an adult too, I mean, and being able to go and travel around the world and have new experiences, I also see how people in other cultures and other countries perceive me just visibly. Like I can be walking through a park in another country and, I see people staring at me in a certain way, or,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's positive or negative or just out of genuine curiosity, the fact that I still will get stares in certain ways or have people presuming things about me just based off of my look and
Mm-hmm.
my visible identity or what they perceive of that um, has it still resonates with me even at 37. So
Yeah,
yeah.
I can understand when you're saying how people perceive you, no matter where you go, because
hmm
that's how it was when I went to Spain for study abroad.
hmm
Like
hmm
I was the tallest person, and I was the darkest person. So
yeah.
it's like they may have not seen that before. And I got called Obama in Morocco.
Mm.
They was like, "Hey,
Wow.
Obama, Obama," and somebody got
Wow.
upset that was in the classroom. They was like, "That is so rude." I was like, "Just relax. Let's get to the bus." And just having that, I mean, that's a good brother to be, to
Yeah,
be
to
resembled
be
by. I'm
compared
like,
to,
to be
right?
compared to, like, what? Yeah, that's Obama.
At least
Yeah,
he wasn't
thank
like
you.
OJ, like
Right?
wasn't like that, like
No. And like when they said it, I was just like, nah, thanks. I'm gonna keep it moving. But
Yeah.
just having that feeling of what are they thinking about me? Because I was upset when I got on the bus, but it's like they don't know me.
Mhm.
So what they
Mhm.
see, that's what they're going to relate it to. Anything that looks like this individual that I see, that's what I'm gonna say.
Yeah.
And I can understand what you're saying as far as how people perceive you and just the thoughts that you have about yourself. And
Mhm.
that's kind of when I said reactions. I wanted to get to the point of those feelings that you talked about. How did you explore them when it came to being that black man? How people look at you and those reactions that you got.
Hmm. So as a kid, I don't know if I was actively reflecting while exploring some of those feelings.
Mm,
Um, I don't even know if I really had, a sense of a feeling like I had the opportunity to explore my feelings more so than I had the opportunity to kind of react to my feelings.
mm,
Like I feel like, like I said, being one of, just a few black kids in my whole school district,
mm,
um, there was a lot of, stuff that I was fighting against. And so a lot of what I was navigating through was reactions to what was happening to me.
mm,
And the opportunity to kind of explore them and to unpack it a bit really didn't hit until I was an adult. And, being able to connect with, whether it's my parents and my family in certain ways, having a different perspective on myself, or even folks outside of that, whether it's counselors or therapists or anything like that, really just helping me explore and get a better understanding of myself and how I've reacted to situations
mm.
in the past or even in the present that could be a result of just a variety of different things that I hadn't been able to, unpack whenever I was younger.
Okay, I I can agree with that because it gets to a point where um, you may not have counselors, social workers, or people that can support you that look like you.
Hmm.
And that's probably the biggest struggle that was on my end. That's
Hmm.
why I never said anything to people. So with my feelings was I didn't want to like give those feelings, and now they feeling some kind of way.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
now they're looking at me like, is there something wrong? Is this and that? But then you also got to recognize that people in your family, they may say whatever goes on in the house stays in the house.
Hmm.
And it's like, bruh, I really want to get this out. And it's like, there's no experts in this space at that time when I was in high school, in college that looked like me. And for me
Yeah.
to get a better understanding and love for myself, there was nobody
Yeah.
besides my mom and my uncle and you and G and everybody else at Arcadia or Roman Catholic High School that I had to sit there and say, hey, look, this is what's going on. This
Hmm.
is how I'm feeling. And my mother was a very pivotal individual when it came to allowing me to express myself in certain ways.
Hmm.
She always said, "You can say what you want, but just don't curse." Like, and I'm gonna support you in a way to get to a space or provide other Black men in spaces that I may know to
Hmm.
support you in those ways. And
Yeah.
that's why I was very helpful because when you look at a mother that has a young Black man, she's like, "I'm not you, and I'm not a man." So I have to put Black men that are positive in this world in front of you to make you see how they express themselves and make sure that you can take some of this, take some of that from right and wrong. But just having those feelings and not being able to like get it out, that's
Yeah.
probably the hardest part, especially for some younger Black men as well.
Oh, most definitely. Most definitely, man.
And like I always say, I navigate this space as a Black man very carefully. We had another brother on that said he navigates this space very carefully. So
Hmm.
how did you learn how to navigate this world as a Black man?
From watching my father and watching my grandfather
Okay.
and listening to them,
Mm-hmm.
whether it was them talking to me directly and
Yeah.
offering me advice or listening to them talk to each other and sitting in the back seat of the car while they're having deep conversations, whether it's about what's going on in their lives, or what's
Mm-hmm.
going on politically, what's going on socially in the community, what's going on, financially in the world, like any and every topic that I would hear them talk about, it was always through their perspective, as
Mm-hmm.
black men. And seeing that type of connection that my father had with my grandfather, and then how he ultimately built that connection with me. That's how I learned and built myself as a black man, and um, have been working intentionally throughout my entire life to be able to, be the best version of myself in the same ways that there were and are, for
Mm-hmm.
my fathers, still actively working to be their best selves every day. We're all learning and continuing to learn all the time. And so how is how can we as black men take what we're learning about ourselves and help to manifest that, so other black men can feel comfortable and vulnerable enough to learn and grow throughout life
Mm-hmm.
as well.
If you don't mind me asking, just a follow up question. What's one thing you learned either from your father or your grandfather that sticks with you right now?
Mm. There's so many things, but I would have to say the through line of all of it is being true to yourself, while at the same time being true for a bigger purpose,
Mm,
and connecting and aligning yourself to whatever that larger purpose is that you identify with, and just being as authentic as you can to help make things better, if that's what it is. For me, it's um, hip hop culture, and using that as a vehicle to express messages of thought, of things that I'm thinking about and witnessing and seeing, and then communicating that through my artistry.
mm-hmm.
For my father, it's visual art, and how
Mm-hmm.
he was able to do that, through painting and through expression on a canvas, or with digital photography, or with sculptures and things of that nature. Or my grandfather, it was through policy and through creating systems and programs that helped to make lives better for many Black people throughout the 50s, 60s, and 70s, and
Mm-hmm.
regions like Harlem and Newark, and other countries and places like that too. So, um, yeah, yeah, just really being able to learn myself as best as I can,
Mm-hmm.
to be able to have as much of an impact as I possibly can.
So you got the best of both worlds, to be honest with you. From what I'm hearing, when you said your dad is in the artistry space, but then your
Hmm.
grandfather is and was in the space of policy change. And
Hmm.
to be honest, from what I see, there's a blend of the two in you,
Hmm.
and it comes out in your music. And I have a quote that you said. It's on your website. It says, "Hip hop helped me find myself, and I seek to teach others about its history and impact in hopes it can do the same for you." So, how did hip hop help you find yourself?
Because it was a space where I was seeing Black people speak and talk with a sense of freedom and a sense of purpose that I'd never heard before. And granted, I can't say like like when I was born, hip hop was already in existence, so it's
Yeah.
not like I was listening to something else and then hip hop came around or anything like
Mm-hmm.
that. But when I first heard it, it was something I was like, oh, this is it. This is
Mm-hmm.
what it's supposed to be, and this is how we really are expressing ourselves. But that was also of an era, that was considered the golden era of hip hop.
Mm-hmm.
The late '80s and the early '90s. There was a different message and an intention that was being had with the music and within the culture that still exists in various ways today, without question. But the culture has grown so much and has become so broad that it doesn't seem to the layperson that the through line of it all is expressions of peace, unity, love, and having fun, and really trying to create a positive social shift for Black and Brown people around the world.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but when you do have an understanding of where the culture comes from and how it was founded and who created it and why they created it, then it's without question that hip hop is still that vehicle that we need to this day.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, that's seeing various artists and how they were using the medium in that way really inspired me as a kid. And then whenever I, was a teenager and into my 20s, really wanting to have a platform for my voice,
Mm-hmm.
especially growing up not feeling like people were listening to me
Mm-hmm.
or connecting with things that I was expressing in certain ways. I felt that the music could be a medium for that in a really positive way.
Okay. And in the quote, you said you seek to teach.
Hmm.
What do you mean by that? Because I know we've said on several occasions that you teach through hip hop.
Hmm.
Um, so how are you planning on teaching, and how have you taught others about the history and the impact of hip hop?
I would say I do it in the same ways or in similar ways as to how I was taught, through artists like KRS-One and
Mm-hmm.
Nas and Chuck D. There's so many people who are pushing, social thought, and that those are people I grew up on, but then,
Mm-hmm.
still inspired by peers to this day, like Kendrick Lamar and J.
Yeah.
Cole and other folks who are really, D Smoke. There are so many people who are talking about really relevant things and are teaching people things that you're no longer getting in your
Mm-hmm.
classrooms.
Yeah.
You're not getting in textbooks, let alone even having textbooks in classrooms to learn about this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so, who are you learning from it? It's going to be from the folks you're tapped into and tuned into. And so, if we can share the knowledge that we have collectively as a people through whatever medium it is that our people are tapping into, then
Mm-hmm.
that's what I'm about. And so, if our schools are cutting the resources and the funding away from our young people to be able to learn about their history and learn about themselves, and they're not empowering educators and teachers and even professors, if you wanted to even take it to higher education, to and especially we see the challenges against critical race theory and all these other
Mm-hmm.
things that are going on in our school systems,
Yeah.
that they're well, how else are we going to get this message across, or what are other ways that we can do that if we're being impeded in certain ways? And so
Mm-hmm.
that's why I feel like hip hop culture is really important for that purpose, because it was the same way, listening to "You Must Learn" in KRS-One back in the late '80s. I wasn't
Yeah.
hearing that in my school or my school district. I
Mm-hmm.
had teachers playing racist Disney videos about the history of music, where they had people with bones in their noses talking about drums in Africa, or racist representations of Asian and Chinese people in the same
Yeah.
cartoons and stuff, and they're saying that this is the history of music. I'm 6 7 years old watching this, like, knowing that it's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's that's an isolated example, but nonetheless a microcosm of what so many kids are also still somewhat dealing with to this day, where they might not be shown things that are just on its face, just flat out racist, but
Mm-hmm.
the fact that they're being held back or don't have the opportunities to learn about these things due to the system,
Yeah.
it's still racist in itself. Or if there are specific teachers doing certain things, there's a whole lot of opportunity that we can have to teach our young people, and to teach the next generation through our culture. And for me, that culture is hip hop, and
Mm-hmm.
so that's why I've always felt of it, being a really tangible and viable medium for expression and thought and learning for our people.
Okay. So I'm gonna ask you a question because I've listened to several of your musics.
Hmm.
Um, which of your songs do you think is the most impactful, and why?
It depends on who's listening,
I feel you.
but for me, I mean, my I feel like my most important and impactful song is probably BLM,
Mm-hmm.
Black Lives Matter, just
Mm-hmm.
because of the relevancy of that topic and subject matter throughout the entire history of this country's existence.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but there are other songs like Mother Earth or Hope, or Time,
Mm-hmm.
where there are concepts that are being discussed that I still think are really important, and that we got to bring more to the surface. I mean, even songs that might seem a little more trivial on the surface, like Degrees. At the
Yeah.
same time, it's still about a black man's path toward attaining degrees of higher education
Yeah.
through a doctorate. So
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot even within the things that could be seemingly surface or a little more trivial. So yeah, all of my music, depending upon what you're looking for, I feel has the opportunity to resonate,
Hmm.
but BLM might be the most important from my perspective.
Okay. I know a lot of people like We Outside because it's trendy. It's people like dancing, people like moving. But for
Yeah.
me, like you said, it depends on the listener.
Mhm.
Um, I feel like I listen to conscious reps. I listen to Kendrick, J. Cole. Those are two main people that I listen to if I just want to be in a space of just listening to stories and storytelling.
Mhm.
Um, I listen to you, one, because you're a storyteller. You talk about the moments in this time right now, and also you teach. That's the main
Mm.
reason why I listen to you. And BLM is one of the ones that I listen to on the regular. I got it on Spotify. I listen to it on the regular because it's like we have to remember that those lives do matter. Our lives do matter. And we have to recognize that, yes, we're not saying these lives over here don't, but in this specific time, you have to remember that we are still humans. We are still
Mhm.
people. And I think that's what people miss. That they just see us as animals, they see us as savages, is like they used to. And it's like that's not the case.
Mm.
Um,
Mhm.
we just have a lot of people in our community that are just upset and angry. They may not know how to express that or let it out in a constructive way. And they try to put us all underneath this one umbrella. And when you talk about degrees, um, it's the same thing. Like people don't know what you have, a piece of paper, until you say it out loud.
Yeah.
And like for you, a lot of people may not know you going for your doctorate. So it's
Mhm.
like people may not know that when you walk into a room. They may say, "Oh, he's a hip hop artist." Yeah, but I'm coming with this knowledge too. I'm not here just
Mhm.
to speak about X, Y, and Z and ABC. I'm speaking facts about what's going on right now. I know I almost,
Right.
Jackson 5 about to come out, but 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 in hip hop there is a form of rep. I think people want to talk about that, and I use rep in a way for representation, expectations, and perception of black men. And the first question I have for you is: you may wear a lot of hats, as I said in the beginning. How do you represent those identities that you have?
Hmm. I mean, my goal is to represent all of them as authentically as possible. Whether
Hmm.
it's the music I create, the songs I write or produce, or my photography and documenting things like social protests and street art in ways that the people are getting their voices out.
Hmm.
My work in the community,
Hmm.
education, youth development, mentoring. I've been doing all of that for over 20 years.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that my character is really the most important aspect and how I show up in each of these spaces and what my intention is with that. I think that's how I attempt to represent my identity as authentically as possible.
Okay. Now, I love the fact that you said your character because that's the first thing that people see, and it's
Hmm.
also you got to make that first impression on people when you walk into that door. That's why I always say to other people that black people are just a mystery. When they walk into a room, they're a mystery and unique
Hmm.
because when you walk into a room, they can look at you and say, "Who are they? What do they do?" Like where they have to ask
Yep.
those questions because they may not know you.
Yep.
And it's until you sit down and you open your mouth, you whatever you're wearing, they going from head to toe, just like we're going from head to toe. Like, look,
Hmm.
we're in the same room, and I
Hmm.
think character is a big thing. I don't think a lot of people know about their characters when it comes to the identities that they have, the masks that they may wear. Because I wear masks when I have to. If I'm not having a good day, I'll put on that mask because I got to go to work. I put on
Hmm.
that mask if I'm with my family and I'm that person that's the outgoing one, making everybody laugh. But sometimes you don't want to feel like that.
Yeah.
So when it comes to like the hats that I wear, it's a bunch of them, but the main ones that I feel represent me the most are I'm a son, I'm a God fearing man, fiance, soon to be husband, and then future dad. And then like those are the main ones that's like on my mind. But then
Yeah.
you have someone that works for and serves black men and boys in the city of Philadelphia. You have a founder of Urban Thinker Media. So you ask yourself, which ones are most important? And we have to recognize that there are some that's more important, because you may have some brothers that say, "I love being a dad." Like
Hmm.
they that's
Yeah.
the main thing that they say. They say, "Forget my name, forget this, forget that. I'm a dad."
Yep.
And like my mom in her signature on her text messages or email, she'll say the mother of Octavius. And it's
Yeah.
like, that's real, because when you look at it, that's who you're representing. And
Hmm.
I appreciate you for saying character, because that's a big thing. And moving into the space of your character, either you may have expectations or other people may have expectations on you. So, what expectations do you have of yourself, and what expectations do you think others have on you?
Mm. I mean, the expectations I have for myself, um, it's interesting because we don't know how much time we have
Yeah.
while we're here. So my expectations are to just have as fulfilling of an experience in life as I possibly can with everything that I hold close, like my family, my friends, and my career. Um, all of that. I consider my girlfriend part of my family and her family as well, all within
Mm-hmm.
that too. So it's like everybody that I'm around and am connected with. Just having as fulfilling of a time and experience with that as possible. That's the only expectation I have because at so many points throughout my life, I've had various, goals
Mm-hmm.
and would align my expectations with of fulfillment with those
Mm-hmm.
goals. And I've far beyond exceeded any of my wildest expectations um, for any of my goals. And that's not to say that I'm as, quote unquote successful or whatever as I, may have thought about myself whenever it comes to finances whenever I was a
Mm-hmm.
kid.
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes to experiences,
Yeah.
I've far exceeded anything that I could have ever imagined in my life.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so now at this point, it's exactly what you're talking about. How can I make sure that I'm, the best father whenever that time comes.
Mm-hmm.
How can I make sure that I'm the best husband,
Mm-hmm.
that I'm the best partner, that I'm the best like leader in my community. Those are
Mm-hmm.
the expectations that I have of myself. Is that everything that I'm invested in and connected with, that I'm giving it my best, and that I'm also taking from it as much of the positive as I possibly can. Um, and when thinking about other people's expectations of me,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I thought about that way too much
Mm-hmm.
throughout my entire life. I mean, um, and it hasn't only been until recently in the last several years that a lot of that has started to wither away.
Yeah.
I've really been intentional in also like building a image publicly that people it's exactly what you talked about where being
Mm-hmm.
a black man walking into a room, people have no idea what to expect from
Yep.
me whatsoever, and I can be in a space with all black people and they
Yeah.
have no idea what to expect from me and what experiences I have and what I'm bringing to the table and what perspectives I have. I could be in a different country or a different town or a different city
Mm-hmm.
and bring something that is completely unexpected because um, everything that I've experienced has been essentially counter to what the stereotypes of that people have been kind of fed around the world.
Yeah.
Um, so I just continue to follow my heart and follow my spirit, and um, even it also sometimes causes me to not even know what my next step is going to be too,
Yeah.
which is fine because I've also realized that there's a certain energy and a space that you're in this space,
Mm-hmm.
in our little, speck of dust in this massive universe, um, that I'm not in control of, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm only in control of how I react and respond to everything. So, um, how other people's expectations fall into that at this point in my life, it
Yeah.
matters dramatically less than it ever should have in the first place.
Okay. I feel you on that one because I think a lot of people say I'm an old soul, and it got to a point where um, I stepped into my grown manness almost.
Mm-hmm,
I
mm-hmm.
don't think I'm at the father grown manness stage yet. I'm at the grown man stage of
Yeah.
certain people's expectations of me
Mm-hmm,
um, really don't phase me
mm-hmm.
because it got to a point where I just said the man upstairs is the only person that has the last laugh, if you want to say,
Right.
and if you want to sit there and say he has a lot of expectations,
Mm-hmm,
and if I can't meet those, he has another path that I can say he can get me back to those expectations that he has for me.
mm-hmm.
And the only person I may have that I may, you know, say, oh yeah, I kind of messed up. It's like my mother, my fiance, and then my kids.
Right.
So it's like when it gets to that point of being a husband and a father, you're like, well, they have expectations of me that I have to bring forward.
Mm-hmm,
But anybody outside of that circle, like yes, my friends, my close friends, that yes, they're gonna have expectations of me. If I say I'm gonna be somewhere, they
mm-hmm.
know I'm gonna be there. But if I don't go, they're like, well, Octavius usually is the person that shows up. So like that's an expectation that they have of me. And one thing I did want to ask you when you brought up different languages in different countries, um, this might be totally off topic, but not for you, but hip hop. As far
Mm-hmm.
as speaking the same language,
Mm-hmm.
because I know you were just in London, and I've noticed that in certain spaces, it doesn't really matter if you speak the same language. To me, hip hop is a feeling. Like you just got to feel it in rhythm and everything like that. So
Yeah.
when it comes to speaking the same language and expectations in that space, how do you think you overcome those, or how does hip hop help you overcome expectations of other people that they have on you?
Mm. I think because the culture is built on self-expression,
Hmm.
that the more you have a self-belief
Hmm.
and a self-determination that's grounded in a self-discipline, um, no matter what language you're communicating that through, it's going to resonate with people.
Hmm.
Um, and thinking about other people's expectations, it's what breaks through all of that.
Hmm.
Belief, determination, and discipline. I
Yeah.
mean, like, I think the best example of that is probably LeBron James.
Okay.
Here's somebody who, as a teenager,
Hmm.
was the expectations was that he was going to be the greatest of all time.
Yep.
Michael Jackson didn't even have to deal with that.
No, he
Nobody, no,
didn't.
like when Michael Jackson was a teenager, it wasn't like he's going to be the GOAT. It
Hmm.
wasn't. So, like, it's just like there's expectations that LeBron has had to navigate through that he has ultimately, arguably, fulfilled.
Hmm.
And he's done that through belief in himself, through
Yep.
determination, and through the discipline of knowing I'm not going to do this because y'all think this. I'm doing this and playing the game my way, the
Yep.
right way, and allowing the game to dictate the outcomes in my life.
Hmm.
And his navigation of that has just been remarkable.
So
And so
smooth.
that's probably what I think whenever it comes to societal expectations and how you
Hmm.
break through all that, it's because you're listening to yourself more than you're listening to the outside anyway.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you on that. Um, because this brother LeBron James is he's different. A lot of people say yes, Michael Jordan in his era was different. Kobe in his era, specific era, was different,
Mhm.
basketball wise.
Mhm.
And Kobe determination, Mamba mentality. LeBron, it's like a combination of that, but also adding in, I'm speaking up for myself,
Mhm.
but I'm also going to be financially savvy when it comes to I have ownership on where I'm going, and I have
Yep.
ownership because y'all need me. Like, let's be honest, y'all need me because I'm bringing in the most money, and that's how
Mhm.
I look at it. If you want to compare, Michael Jordan did the same thing. Michael Jordan brought in people. He brought in money, changed the game for that era. He moved
Mhm.
them into a certain space. LeBron's doing the same thing for future basketball players. And it was up until they loved LeBron. He was the king. He was this. He was that. All praises. They are waiting for that black man to do something wrong.
Yep.
And they're looking at him now as he's, speaking his mind on the court, saying what he need
Mhm.
to say. You may hear a cuss word at some point. They try to talk about how he raised his kids. And I'm like, it was up until he made a certain move, that narrative of he's the king, he's this, he's that. He's still the king from some people's point of view, but people look at him differently.
Yeah.
And that I'm glad that you brought that up, because the next question I have for you is, yes, people perceive him in a positive light, a negative light, but how would you like people to perceive yourself and also other black males?
I wish that people would perceive, me, but all black men as just
Mm-hmm.
honest representations of who their spirit is. Like it feels like
Nice.
because we end up
Nice.
influencing so much that
Mm-hmm.
outside folks end up looking at us like characters or caricatures
Mm-hmm.
or entertainment or some ethos of a character that isn't
Yeah.
really authentic to who we are, or then goes back to your point of not having any idea or what we are or who we are, what we're bringing to the table.
Mm-hmm.
um it's just like I just think that, like, if people just had a better understanding of, like, no, that's just honestly who he is, and there's no need to judge that or poke at that or criticize that or laugh at that or whatever.
Yeah.
It's just like, no, accept it. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you're different too. Like, is everybody gonna, start pointing their finger or poking at you, looking at you like a certain way? Like, nobody appreciates that.
Mm-hmm.
And so, just the opportunity to just be accepted as who you are and not have to deal with a reaction to that
Mm-hmm.
would be ideal for me.
Okay. I don't get speechless, but I think your answer kind of like made me step back a little bit and just think about it, because that's just what it is. You got to accept me for me
Yeah.
and not take those characters that you see or characters that's just created on TV and say, okay, he looked like, no,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not that. I'm Octavius Levon Blount.
Right.
And that's just the struggle that I think just black people in general go through.
Mm-hmm.
They're put underneath a microscope and they're like, okay, if you do X, Y, and Z, if you're funny, go be a comedian. Like, no, I'm funny, but I want to be an engineer. Like,
Right.
I don't want to go over there. Like, that's what we're just
Yep.
looked at as entertainment. And
Mm-hmm.
some people forget that we have lawyers, we have doctors, we have engineers, we have people that are CEOs of companies, we have billionaires, if you want to say. But some of those billionaires may have just been, yeah, they're in entertainment, but they also had a love for something else.
Right.
Like you got LeBron, he loves basketball,
Mm-hmm.
but he has a lot of things going on outside of basketball that shows he loves his hometown.
Yeah.
He loves his mom. He loves his kids. He loves his wife. But then it's also like, well, I like to tell stories too.
Mm-hmm.
So he's in different spaces to sit there and say, well, I can do more than just play basketball. To where it's like that slogan of more than an athlete comes into play.
Mm-hmm.
And I just love what you said. I'm probably rambling, but I just love what you said, because that's why I said I'm speechless, because it's like, what else do you say? Like, my spirit is not the same as what you see.
Mm-hmm.
My mind, body, and spirit is not the same.
Mm-hmm.
So I know you said that the first question I asked you was, what do you love about being a black man? And you brought up your grandfather and your father. And I also asked you, like, what kind of advice or was one thing you learned from them?
Mm-hmm.
I do want to ask the question of, if possible, um, what three pieces of advice would you either give the older generation and the younger generation, um, I asked that question because the meaning of this podcast is Middle Brother Podcast because I saw um, that there was tension between both generations, and
Hmm.
myself and you maybe in the middle at times to sit there and say, "Young King, I hear you, but you got to listen to him because he's been through X, Y, and Z." And then you got to do the flip and be like, "Oh, gee, I hear you." But this
Yep.
young brother right here is going through something right now that you've been through. I need you to help him.
Yeah.
So what? It doesn't have to be three. But what piece of advice would you give either the older generation or the younger generation?
Hmm. I would say, I mean, advice for both because it's all we all are all living in the same moment at the same
Yeah.
time. So the first thing would be just never stop learning
Mm-hmm.
ever, and never stop being open to learning. That's something that we often get stagnant with at a certain point in life, thinking that we've learned enough. We might have learned enough to get us past a certain point,
Mm-hmm.
but there's so much more opportunity and so much more of the world out there. So just never stop learning and never stop being open to learning and never stop seeking knowledge
Mm-hmm.
within that. Um, I would say the second thing would be um, I don't know, just don't skip like the fundamentals.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure that you're, being mindful of how you're going to get there because everybody's trying to get there
Mm-hmm.
fast.
Yeah.
And they're trying to like, whether you're younger and it's like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, if I just do this and this, boom, 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 I'm gonna be there. Or when you're older, it's like, oh man, I only got, you know, a couple decades of life left. I got
Right.
to make sure I get there. So everybody's trying to get there
Mm-hmm.
faster, and it's just like, I, the only thing about it all is that nothing is going to get built without the fundamentals. So whether you're younger, whether you're older, if you want to get to somewhere, you've got to do the steps and do what it takes.
Yeah.
Um, and not worry about the time. Just worry about getting what you can done while you have the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that connects to the third thing too, as far as just like appreciate everything. The
Thank you.
third most important, I think, the third thing is probably the most important. Just appreciate everything,
Yeah.
every little step of the journey, all the successes, all of the setbacks, all of the challenges, everything that you have to go through. Because when you stop appreciating it, even the hard things,
Mm-hmm.
um, then you have the opportunity to get consumed by it.
Yeah.
And just like, yeah, that beat me down. That took me, but I know I could fight back because you then have that self discipline, that self belief, that determination to fight back and bounce back from that. Like all of that is all connected. And
Mm-hmm.
so if you're appreciative as your foundation, um, and you're not trying to go too fast, like even stopping to just like literally just stop and smell a flower because a flower smells good. Like why
Yeah.
not? Like what is that 10 seconds or what are you losing by taking that 10 seconds to do that?
Mm-hmm.
Nothing. You're gaining something.
Yep.
You just had a beautiful moment with yourself for yourself. And how it could be smelling a flower, it'll be whatever it is, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Just take the time to appreciate it, all of it, because all of it is life, and this is all we're gonna have. So those are the three things that I would give to both generations, so to speak.
Okay. You left me speechless again because you just dropping gems right now because that's just what you do. But like I said, this podcast is based off just the tension between the two and being able
Mhm.
to be the glue for for both generations. And based off what you've seen and experienced, what's one thing you think black men can do to grow together?
To grow together, embrace vulnerability, but allow for that vulnerability too. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
like if you got like somebody you genuinely consider your brother, like then support them when they're going through something. But hopefully you've created that kind of connection in that bond where your brother can feel like he could open up and be vulnerable and be like, yo, like I'm going through this situation and I'm not looking for you to just ride out with me. I just need somebody to talk to about this and just to vent this out and then supporting one another through that. Like not judging him because, calling him weak or whatever, or saying we all need each other. We all need somebody to lean on. And if that brother doesn't have anybody but you, why are you going to be the one to push him away? So,
Mm-hmm.
um, yeah, the opportunity and the space and the allowance of vulnerability, I think, is just something that would really help us grow together, as Black men.
Thank you, because that's a space that we don't get to be in,
Hmm.
especially we don't get to be in it by ourselves. Because, like you said, take the time to smell a flower. We don't get the time to be in those vulnerable spaces because, like you said, yes, they see men. They say, "Oh, men shouldn't cry. Men shouldn't do this. Men shouldn't do that." But now we're in the space of, "Hey, bro, I'm gonna need you to speak up, bro. I'm gonna
Hmm.
need you to like. We have a connection. We have a relationship that you can just let me know what's going on, and I'm here for you."
Yeah.
Um, and you have to do it with authenticity. You can't just do it with the thought of, "Oh, I'm gonna take this back to somebody else," or
Hmm.
"I'm gonna use that as leverage to do X, Y, and Z." You have to be authentic about allowing your brother this space. And I commend you for saying vulnerability because right now, and the times that we're in right now, we have a lot of black men dying, not just from gun violence and X, Y, and Z, but we got a lot of
Yeah.
black men dying from suicide because um, they may be facing some things that they may not want to express to people.
Hmm. Hmm.
But then there's also you have social media playing a role in it too. Like you said, people trying to move fast, and you see on social media, people only post what they completed,
Right.
and it's like they don't show the process.
Hmm.
I'm not going to talk about Embiid and the Sixers, but that's just what it is. It's a
Yeah.
process to get to that completed object or task that you have.
Hmm.
So thank you for allowing me to hear um, the word vulnerability because that's the main thing that I think we also need as well. Before we end, I do want to elevate you and your work. If you could plug um, your you being a musician, you being an educator and an
Hmm.
activist. If you have anything later on this year, you have any music coming out. Do you have anything with your classes that you have going on as far as activism in the community and your job? This is the time right now, brother.
I appreciate that, man.
No
I mean,
problem.
well, I definitely have new music coming out, consistently, whether
Hmm.
it's, new songs or new music videos. So folks can follow me at Ellect 217, ELLECT 217 on Instagram or TikTok or Twitter. All my music and music videos are on YouTube at JusListen Ent, JusListenEnt. You can also check out my photography at JLE Media. I've got some social things going on with Hip Hop is Voting at Hip Hop is Voting on Twitter and on Instagram. But just for the whole umbrella of the organization, you can visit justlistenent.com to learn more about Just Listen Entertainment and myself and the other members of the crew and the great work that they're doing at JusListenent.com. I'll be doing some workshops on the history of hip hop and hip hop culture throughout the summer into next fall. If that's something that's interesting to you at all, you can definitely hit me up at stephentyson.com, STEPHENTYSON.com. Learn more about the hip hop workshops, in addition to the classes that I'm teaching at Arcadia University, and the work that I'm doing as a program director for City of Philadelphia. So yeah, it's a busy, busy
It's
year, busy
busy.
time, but I'm definitely around and looking forward to connecting with y'all. So definitely reach out.
Okay. Brother, I appreciate you for joining. And I love you, brother.
I love you too, my man. I appreciate you, man. Thanks for having me on.
No problem. So I do want to allow you all to follow us on Instagram and subscribe to our YouTube channel at Urban Thinker Media, and also join our website urbanthinkermedia.com. And we'll see you all next time with another brother on the Middle Brother Podcast. Peace.